Anthony, so good to see you today, but I have some devastating gum-related news that I'm going to have to share with you today.
I can't wait to chew on it.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Everybody, thanks for watching the one and only No Vacancy Live. Of course, I'm Glenn Hausman. That's Anthony Melchiori. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to have a great show today, Anthony. So we've got Jan Freitag on from CoStar STR, giving us all that we need to know to inform us on industry statistics today. What do you think about that?
Give me the gummy news.
All right. Pains me, but the world's worst gum and my childhood favorite, fruit stripe gum, is going away forever, and I don't know how to process this. It had all this amazing flavor for about a half a second, and then it was like cardboard after that, but I loved it.
I want to tell you how impressed I am that after that devastating news, you still made it time for us today. Listen, there are people that go to war. There are Green Berets. There are Navy SEALs. But they got nothing on you after you heard those devastating news.
Hey, listen, nothing against them, but I've earned my fruit stripes. That's for sure. Let's see if Jan is able to continue with the show. Jan Freitag, National Director of CoStar. How are you? Did you like that gum as a kid? Do you have any experience with fruit stripe gum?
How do I jump into that? Dude, I grew up in Germany. I don't even know what you're talking
I
about.
didn't think so. Yeah. All right. I had a feeling. It was a terrible gum. It was like a gum for kids that like had a tiger on it. And it was really exciting. They're all different flavors, but it was it burst in flavor like literally for like 2 seconds and then went away. Hopefully that won't be what's going on in the hospitality industry this year going forward. That's why we kind of have you on today, Jan, to take us through how you're seeing it based on all of your research. We got a lot of stuff going today. Where do you want to start, sir?
Wow, you took a sharp left turn there from
hey, listen, there's a reason why people call me the Segway King. All right, nobody calls me that. I'm just hoping that if I say it enough, it'll work.
Hoping that he stopped chewing on that and move forward. It was getting painful.
Seriously, guys.
Exactly. All right, so I got you just wrote an article the other day, 2 days ago as we're broadcasting this on questions for the U.S. hotel industry in 2024. But you also provided to me a lot of great slides. So we got this going on that we're going to follow with today. Jan, where would you like to begin? Should we start with the questions and then go to the slides to relate to them? Does that make sense?
I mean, it's all sort of bridges together. If you go maybe to the first slide, I think that's the forecast slide. Yeah, so let's just go with that. You probably want to know, what are we thinking? You have your perspective.
Right, we sure do. And before we get into it, let me just tell the listening audience, if you're listening to our audio feed, check the show notes. I will have this presentation available for you to watch along with us. But Jan, try to throw out as many numbers as you can to create an audio picture for people as well.
That's what I love doing. So what we're proposing for 2024 is continued growth in RevPAR, which is good. We suggest that the American economy is going to continue to expand. GDP growth is going to be positive. Our friends from Oxford Economics tell us that. And with macroeconomic growth comes demand growth. So we're saying demand is going to grow by just under 2% or so. And supply is not a headwind. You've had a lot of developers and owners on, and everybody's saying, we can't just pull the trigger. So supply growth is 0.8% projected for this year, which is really well below the long run average of 2% or 2.1%. So really limited headwind, so really more of a tailwind of supply. Demand growth because the American economy is growing. And then the question is, how much are room rates growing?
Right.
And there's clearly a relationship between consumer price index, CPI, inflation, and how much we're growing our top line. And so we're saying that room rates are going to grow by, call that 3% or so. And so you have occupancy growth of a point and ADR growth of 3, and that gets you to sort of 4% RevPAR growth for the year. Amanda Height from STR will be on the stage at the Alice conference and give you the latest forecast, but it's not going to change drastically from what we are saying. Does that sort of jive with what you're hearing?
Yeah, and it sounds exactly like what we're hearing. And of course, the Alice conference is coming up on Monday, the 22nd and 23rd at the LA Live Center in downtown LA. I'll be there, and I know a lot of you will be too. So yeah, Anthony, how are you seeing this based on the conversations we've been having?
I mean, they're the best in the business, so I'm
Yep.
taking it as scripture. With that said, this is with all that wins in our face, with everything that's going on, and I don't have to list all the things that are going on in our economy and in our world. This seems to be optimistic, and I was a little surprised by 4% RevPAR growth. But again, I'm sure that's it's going to happen. How the challenges in our world, how can we still have that 4%? Meaning, where are we with inflation? Where are the interest rates? Where are people tired of, are we over that surge travel where we're just fed up and we want to leave our house? So what went into these numbers?
Anthony, you put your finger exactly on this question that I have and that a lot of macroeconomists have. There is a lot of good data. Unemployment rate is really low.
Yep.
Inflation rate is coming down. The American economy did not go into recession last year, is not likely not going to go into recession this year, and is growing. And at the same time, there's one data point that is counter to everything, which is consumer sentiment. The consumer sentiment is way down. The Michigan survey says Americans are feeling not really good about themselves and about the state of the union, but all the macroeconomic indicators and our ADR and RevPAR forecast are quite positive. And how do you match those two together, right? You're putting your finger exactly on the question that I get a lot, that a lot of people have. So I think there are a couple of things to think about. One is we still have continued growth in corporate transient demand, right? We're not all back on the road yet. Number two, group travel is back and back roaring. In October, we hit the total group demand that we hit in 2019 October. So we're back on group.
Unbelievable.
We are really back. Corporate transient, we're not quite back, but there's more room to grow. And on the leisure side, you make an interesting point. Was 2023 the year of the great international outbound, right? We're all on Instagram and all your friends were in Greece and in Venice, and Berlin. Will they in 2024 now say, look, I was in Venice, I'm good.
Right.
I'm going to go back to Colorado, whatever. Will we see the pendulum swing back a little bit, and will we have some international inbound? So we think there's still some room on the demand side to grow. And then I think on the ADR side, it's just inflation. Everything gets more expensive. Hotels get more expensive.
All right, let me throw this out and see if you guys agree with this. Yeah, Anthony, go ahead.
Let me just make that note because I meant to say that, and I think that's a really good point. There are many years where we're really, really sensitive to rate. And the guest says we don't want to pay that rate, and we lower our rates. And we have no choice. And obviously, that's going to continue. However, I will say we are going to be more stringent and more we're not going to move rates easily. We're going to have a lot of data, and we're going to have a lot of information and a lot of concern before we start just adjusting rates so we don't meet our budget. Because years past, that can flow. You can find expense savings. You can find, let's hold off on this. You can find labor savings. You can't find it anymore. Okay, the labor we have, we need. Their payroll is up 30-40% depending on what market. Taxes up real. So that ADR, I believe the ADR simply because revenue management is so sophisticated today. And that vice president of revenue management who is going to have to really consider maybe changing rates because they don't see the demand there. They're going to come up with some creative ways to ensure that they meet that budget they put on the books, because this year, more than I've seen since 2008, this is a critical year for the bottom line. The bottom line, not the gross operating expense, but the bottom line.
Absolutely. We talk about this And so this gets a little wonky, but this idea of nominal versus real. So in economy, we talk about the nominal rate growth and the real rate growth, the inflation adjusted rate growth, right? And if inflation is, I don't know, 3% and your room rate is, I don't know, growth is, I don't know, 3%, that leaves you nothing, like 0% in real change. So you're putting your finger right on the topic of conversation that a lot of GMs have with their owners and owners have with their management team to say, look, guys, this is all about driving EBITDA, about driving GOP. Top line will grow, yes, but how much of that is falling through?
Yeah, they have no choice to make the budgets they put on paper this year because the expenses are extraordinary.
Right. And I would say, fortunately, and this is my opinion here, I'm curious as what you gentlemen think about this. I think that part of the reason why we're going to see RevPAR growth is people will be cutting back certain things in their life, but I don't think that has to do with travel. They may go out to dinner a few less times at home. I think they may not go to the movies as much. They may cut back on buying certain goods. But I think it's been well established over the last 15, 20 years that people feel that they need to travel. They need to get out there. They need to do that more. And that's more fulfilling in people's lives. And I think for the first time, we're starting to see Gen Z people who live that ethos more entering the mainstream. They're starting to get jobs and they're doing all of that travel as well. Then everybody's grandparents, the baby boomers, are doing that as well. So I think that there's a lot of evidence that people will choose travel over other parts of the economy. Not only that, but if we're all disillusioned with politics and stuff, we're just like, forget about it. I'm going to get out of here and go away for the weekend,
I think what we learned, if we learned anything in 2020, it's never bet against the American leisure consumer.
Yeah, right?
Like they are ready to go and ready to spend. But I think, Glenn, your argument about trading down on like not going to the movies all the time, getting Netflix, or not going to the nice restaurant, going to a quick service restaurant, that also translates to the hotel space.
Yeah.
Right. Like you may used to go to that full service hotel on the beach, and now you're like, well, let's just walk 2 blocks and stay in a limited service hotel.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with that. But then you get into that problem, and I'm curious to how you have to think. And now we're just totally deviating off the plan for today. That mushy middle, right? It's like people go down or they go up with the hotels, but the ones in the middle, I think, are usually left holding the bag. And again, anecdotally, but do you see numbers to support that?
We don't call it mushy middle, for one. We call them, upper mid-scale or mid-scale. So those types of properties have done really, really well. But I think part of it is driven by the return of the corporate transient traveler. Yeah. We had the CHIPS Act where the American infrastructure bills, we're having a lot more people on the road building things. And those are traditionally staying in those roadside, hotels, motels, branded often. And those types of properties have done quite well.
Yeah, which is why we're seeing even more extended stay hotels. And congratulations to Hilton for naming H3 Live Smart, which I think is pretty cool. All right, back to the slides.
What's your name? I didn't get the name.
Live Smart Studios.
LIV, Live Smart.
I like that.
It's great. The logo's great. It's pretty poppy. I've seen some names for new brands come that are pretty whatever, but I think this one really connects with me. All right. So business focused hotels seem to be doing really well, except for economy over there. Yeah, but I guess that makes sense if it's business, right? And
you're looking here, upper upscale hotels, big super tanker, large meeting rooms have done really well in 23 because they did
of the group business.
Absolutely, 100%. Because group is back to 19 levels in certain months. Because of course, corporate transient is back. People are back in the office. 3-2, 2-3 hybrid, whatever. When I joke with my friends at Blackstone or JP Morgan, they're like, yeah, we're either 5 days in the office or 7 days in the office. We don't do this like 2-3, 3-2. But for a majority of people, when we're back downtown in the office, that means that business travelers can come back to the downtown hotels to meet with people in the office.
Right.
What's interesting, you see on the luxury side here, room rates are down. And you're like, wait, how does that work? Everything is more expensive. This is purely the mix shift we talked about. So in 2022, the room rates we sold on the luxury side were mostly leisure travelers. And they paid bar, right? Best available, top end. And a lot of them wanted to there, but suites and villas and whatever. But now we're layering in incentive groups and corporate negotiated rates, and all of this taking the average down. So, Anthony, back to an earlier point from you, we are in this interesting environment where the American leisure consumer is going to continue to see their rates going up, but the STR CoStar data is going to show a slowing in rate growth because we're layering those lower rated groups and corporate transient in. That's why ADRs on the luxury side are down. It's a mix shift, not discounting, it's mix shift.
So you don't like your job, do you?
What can I say? It's data. It's beautiful.
You look like a kid going to a candy store.
Yeah, I love this. I love it. We had and you're a perfect match for us because we love walking out on this this type of information too. So I think what you're really saying, for example, if you're looking at this luxury thing, right? So occupancy is up, so they're selling more rooms for groups, but instead of me as a leisure customer, where I may have been paying $500. There'll be more occupancy, but maybe I negotiated a rate of $279 for my group or something like that, right?
That's exactly right. Or we had a lot of resorts, luxury resorts with like $1,000 rates. I mean, you read those reports, you see that, but now suddenly people are coming downtown. The luxury rates there are maybe 800 room, and that obviously that's less. It's still a lot, but it's less.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next slide. Group demand, as you were saying, crushing
that
it.
Is just to show, we're back. And this goes back maybe a little bit, and I think we've talked about this before, because we're not in the office, but our head of HR, our CEO still have to build culture. How do you build culture? Well, you get people together, we're not in the office together. Let's just have a quick meeting in, I don't know, Nashville. Wednesday night, everybody comes in, nice dinner. Thursday morning, team building and training. Thursday afternoon, some other activity, and then everybody leaves.
Right.
And those are group rooms that didn't exist, arguably, in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we've been talking about as a trend here on No Vacancy. All right, so international outbound still strong, which has been hurting domestic demand. But Jan, I'm getting the feel that you're right. I think everybody did 22, we're going to party here. 23, we're going to party overseas. And 24, I think we're going to come back. But how are you seeing this reflected in last year and going forward?
Yeah, so I think the yellow dots show comparison, same month, 2019. And you see on the left-hand side, the international inbound is down, what is it, -20, -15, -10.
Right.
But I think it's getting better, right? It's not as bad as it was. Right. And I think we're going to see some China inbound. We're going to see some Japan inbound. Depending on how the dollar is, we're going to see some European inbound. And I think on the right-hand side, you see Americans leaving the U.S. to the tune of up 10, 20% compared to 19. And I think that's going to slow. We are in an election year. There are true wars going on. Everything that Anthony didn't want to mention is sort of weighs on people's minds. And maybe they're going to say, look, let's just stick closer to home.
Right. Yeah. Anthony, you think that makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. I'm gigging out on the geeking out.
And again, if anybody wants to get this, check the show notes for the audio feed, and it will be right there. All right. Now, you were saying Blackstone peeps are working 7 days a week, but they may work a couple from home. But here you're saying 3-day office schedules are really reigning supreme, as they would say on TV, right? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so we wrote an article on CoStar. This company, Challenger Day and Christmas, is the research company, and they asked, okay, so if you're in the office, how often are you in the office? And they asked that in the spring and in the fall. And you can clearly see here that the amount of people who are working 3 days in the office is up. So a third of the respondents are now working on a 3-2 hybrid schedule. The amount of people working 0 days is down, working 1 day is down, 5 days is up a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think there's a clear shift from 2 days to 3 days. And you saw, I think UPS, just announced back 5 days, in the office. So I think you're going to see more companies saying, look, guys, we have all this office space. Let's use it, And so maybe 3-2 is going to be the new normal.
It's fascinating, and I've said this before, but go back 4 or 5 years, right? Not even go back, 4 or 5 years, 3 years, and that graph people would look at you like,
didn't exist.
Is it heroin or cocaine? What is your drug of choice?
Absolutely. The mind has shifted. The field of working has shifted. We're all on Zoom and Teams and whatever all the time. We were taught during the pandemic. And now, it's really hard to put the genie back in the bottle. I think we're going to see sort of a concerted effort of tenants, CEOs saying, look, I'm paying all this rent. I want people back in the office. But I'm not sure that 5 days is a thing.
Yeah,
3 days, sure.
I think 5 days, that would be difficult. However, like I've said before, I just don't know how you build pride and you build teams when you're not in the office with your colleagues. Again, 3 days, 4 days, but when you have 1 day in the office,
That's not good.
you just can't build and also the people that decide, you know what, I'm going to be in the office 4 days.
Right.
They're going to get promoted faster than the person that's working 1 day.
Or work in a hotel.
Unless they can show extreme amount of separation in workload and improvement. But again, being, we all want it. We all want to be around each other, even when we say we don't. We are humans that need that human interaction, and so I think it's going to definitely increase 3 days this year. I think you're going to see the 4 days. I don't think you're going to see I think the 5 days, if anything, is going to go down. I think 5 days is gone.
Yeah, let's look back at that slide again. 5 days is increased a little bit, which is
nice. Wow.
A surprise, just a little bit.
10%.
No, I think it's going to go down this year because I'm hearing. I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot of times, Glenn. I'm partners with you, so how right can I be? I'm just hearing a lot of people moving on when they have to be 5 days. They're getting more money. They're working 3 or 4 days from home. Some really exceptional people. So listen, I understand that people want to be in the office, that they want them in the office 5 days, but I see a slowing of that, but I could be wrong, completely wrong. It's just basically what I'm seeing. We're going to
Don't worry about me.
Here's a theory. I have nothing to prove this yet, but here's a thought.
Yeah.
So what if we're in the office 3 days and we've arranged our life around being not in the office Mondays and Fridays? And Fridays we walk the kids to school, and Mondays we have the dog room or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so our life is sort of now on these 3 days we're in the office. Are we then also subconsciously changing our travel patterns to 3-2? Are we then saying, I can't really travel Mondays and Fridays. I'm really only traveling on those 3 days. Are we crunching a 5-day travel week into 3 days for corporate transient? And then are we adding to that all the group travelers? And does that then mean that for those 3 nights or 2 nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, that we're going to suddenly see compression and higher room rate growth than what we're projecting? Again, I'm making this up, but I'm wondering.
I don't think you're making it up. I think you're basing it on what we're actually seeing happen in society anecdotally there for sure. All right. So occupancy midweek, you have a chart here, steady as she goes. How does this play into your philosophy?
Yeah. So what I just said hasn't played out yet, but I wonder if in 2024, when we have this conversation again a year from now, whatever, 6 months from now, if there's something there. I think the interesting thing here is that the weekend leisure piece has just been a little weaker all year, and I think this goes back to this idea of normalization and Americans, maybe traveled, a little bit more abroad.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. A few years ago, it was like everything was busy Thursday to Tuesday, completely like the opposite of what things have been. I'm looking at this. It looks like, according to you, occupancy is down a little bit all around, but not that midweek, Monday to Wednesday. So I guess that plays into the group business going up, more people in corporate getting back to it, and being on the road. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's exactly the way I would look at it.
All right, cool. All right, highest interest rates. We've been talking a little bit about, just to set the stage for your comment, Jan. Unfortunately, we were old enough to remember what life was like before the Great Recession in 2008, when interest rates were higher than they are even today. But I always like to say a generation of people have now come up between then, seeing artificially low interest rates, which I think has kind of skewed the perception of how deals could get done and how they're penciled out. So that being said, feel free to flame me if you think I'm wrong. What are the numbers telling you about where we are today?
Well, I'm flaming you for calling us old,
Yeah.
but you're totally correct that the interest rate environment that we've had for the last couple of years was basically free money, and there was no bad idea, and now interest rates are up. And so what we're seeing in the pipeline data is that the number of rooms in construction is basically flat and has been flat for literally the last 2 years or so. So it's like between 150 and 160,000 rooms in construction. What that flat means is that the rooms that open are backfilled. Some projects are breaking ground. It's just not a whole lot. And you're seeing the final planning number is up 20%.
That's pretty good.
So what that to me means is that somebody has land, somebody has a brand, and now they go to the bank and say, hey, give me a construction loan. And the bank's like, yeah, it costs you whatever the number is. And they're like, whoa, that's a lot. And I then have to think about, once I'm opening, I have to take out that construction loan.
Right.
What is the interest rate then on the regular mortgage? And man, maybe I'm just going to sit back for a minute. And I think because the Federal Reserve has indicated that we are now at peak rate and they're going to start taking interest rates down, that I think is going to make a lot of people very interested in breaking ground.
So do I, as a developer, go, well, I could get my loan and break ground in February, but now that I know that the Fed's going to drop rates throughout the year, maybe I'll wait till August. Do you think that's a possibility?
Maybe, but I think I think a lot of people are saying, look, I don't care about the construction loan. I'm interested in the long-term loan, and that's going to be lower than what I have today. Let's go.
All right. That makes sense to me. I like that theory. Anthony, you got any questions on this particular?
No, that makes perfect sense. And listen, at the end of the day, you're going to make more money if you go now than if you wait.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the boat.
That's always the way it is, and that's why I'm going to harp on this theme all year, because I know they're going to start saying it, Alice Jan, where everybody's going to claim that they're hesitant about doing stuff because of the political environment, because we're in an election year. I just want to say I think that they say that stuff to get other people not to do deals, right? So yeah, all right.
We'll be busy.
Yeah.
So this is what the chart here we're showing is quarterly transaction volume in billions of dollars. The fourth quarter data just came out. We sold roughly 6 billion or so, and so that's down. Just the number got revised a little bit, but call it down 50%. 55% from a year ago. I don't see a catalyst for Q1, a lot of transactions, but absolutely. My indicator, and you probably have your own little indicator, but my non-data indicator that I use is how busy is the walkway between the JW and the Starbucks at the Alice conference. And if you can't get through, that means, man, we are really rocking and rolling. And I think that area around the Starbucks is going to be very busy in 2 weeks. People are just laying the groundwork and getting ready to transact in 2024. Not in Q1, but I definitely think there's going to be an uptick.
So where the Alice conference takes place, there's a courtyard at the LA Live area. And if you go just behind the JW, right next to that, in the courtyard area, is that Starbucks. And it's a natural place because LA's got great weather. Everyone wants to be outside. It's a natural place for everybody to hang out. And I'll tell you, people start getting those little tables over there and at Yard House next door really early and do a lot of deals over there. Yeah, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Jeff is asking, is this file available to access? Yes, I will be putting it up along with the audio feed this very afternoon, as soon as I have an opportunity, right after I host something for our friends over at Hotel Business today. Okay, so next slide, CMBS delinquency rates. That was a huge issue that we were talking about throughout last year. When you look at this slide, how does that meet the expectations the industry was thinking in regards to it?
I mean, really, the story is that it's not a story. I use this slide just to say, take a deep breath. We're fine. Like the 5% number, delinquency number has been around for a while, and I don't think that's going to change very much. Call it stay alive to 25, extend and pretend, delay and pray, whatever your favorite bumper sticker is about this is. You talk to your lender and you say, look, man, I just give me another extension. We can figure this out together. So I don't expect that number to spike up.
All right. I got a new one. I'm in a bind, so I'll be blind. That'll be my new one. All right.
So going back to 2020 during COVID, there was a 20% delinquency rate.
Oh yeah.
All right, hold on. I'll
Now,
bring that slide
not
back up.
all of it. So delinquent doesn't mean the bank took the keys back. It just meant the owner was like, look, man, I can't make this payment. We're calling this delinquent because CMBS is very structured, as you know.
Right.
You have to, follow every INT. And this was called delinquent. It then may have righted itself. And you see that the delinquency number came down pretty quickly after people got other mortgages or preferred equity or other sort of capital sources, or once just guests came back, and people were able to make the debt payment again.
Yeah.
Rough days.
That makes perfect sense. So I might as well ask you, since we're here, before we start to wrap up today and get to that last slide that you gave me. What do you think the sentiment is going to be when we convene in LA in a couple of weeks?
I think because the Federal Reserve has indicated rate cuts, and depending on who you believe, it's going to be March, April, or it's going to be later in the year or whatever, but they're going to be interest rates have peaked. And I think that has a lot of people active, ready. At least now they can plan. They know that the interest rates are not going to be higher than what we have today, and that allows them to plan and go forward and underwrite and make deals or break ground.
Yep. Any insights on the transaction market? We talked a little bit about new builds, but what about properties trading hands?
Again, I'm not sure Q1 is going to see a whole lot.
Yep.
But I think after that we're going to see healthy activity.
Excellent. Anthony.
Before we get to the last slide, can we go to the slide that showed the increase in average rates among different segments, among the luxury segment, discount segment? Can we just go to that slide? Because that's it. So I understand you explained the luxury upper scale, but the economy class and mid scale, explain the theory behind that.
Super interesting, right? So economy chains have seen occupancy decline, and that is actually better than what the underlying data is, because we've seen supply taken out of inventory. So the demand is actually down more on the economy side. Okay, so then why is that? Part of it is, of course, we've seen, hotels close. That demand doesn't exist anymore. Some hotels moved up market. Some travelers probably said, hey, I'm feeling pretty good. I have a very stable job. Unemployment rate is low. If I get fired, I get another job. Let me go mid-scale or upper mid-scale. Maybe trade up. So it's still a little bit of a question mark why the economy segment is behaving the way it's behaving. But I think a lot of it's just moving out to mid-scale or to independent.
And was it just an uptick during COVID and right after COVID that the only place it has to go is down a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Dr. Producer Suzanne is saying, we had yesterday Chip Rogers on, and we were talking about, for those that don't know, the president and CEO of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. Check out that show now. But he was saying, we were talking a little bit about the Airbnb rule changes in New York City, banning them. Do you think we'll see an increase in the hotel business in New York City because of this? Or I should say business for hotels in New York City because of it? Or was it more of a leisure phenomenon and people will just stay in Jersey or not bother coming? How do you think it's going to play out?
So I think there are three forces that will make New York City the city maybe to watch in 2024. Number one, as you said, Airbnb short-term rentals are basically moved from 1 night to 30 nights or more. And so those leisure travelers will have to decide where they're going to stay. Likely they're going to have to use a hotel. Right. Number two, the number of rooms in construction is still super high, but after that, once those 8,000 rooms open, the pipeline is it's not nil, but there's not a lot coming because of the way that new hotels get authorized now. It's super complicated, and they're definitely union. And so the mid-block limited service hotel is basically no longer existing. So
Mr. de Blasio fixed that problem, or actually made that problem when he signed that legislation that made it very difficult for hotels to develop in the city without going through, we'll just say, certain channels.
Right.
And that's going to be with us for a long time. And number 3, we have 16,000 rooms that we're taking offline to house the unhoused migrants and refugees. Yep. Now, those were half-star, the Jan Inn, whatever, you never want to stay in. But
definitely not.
But still, that is demand in some instances that has to go upstream. Because some travelers did it. Some international inbound didn't know what they were booking. Now they have to go a little bit higher. So I'm very bullish on New York, and I'm bullish on New York City room rents. And it's going to be really interesting to see how New York hoteliers are capitalizing on this quote unquote perfect storm of demand and supply constraint.
Excellent. And I want to wrap up today by letting you show a little bit for you and Isaac. You got a data-related podcast over there. So Geeks Unite behind this one. Yeah.
If you find any of this interesting, join us once a month. It's on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Tell Me More, hospitality data podcast. We like to call it not a lot of hair, but a lot of good data. So find us wherever you get your podcasts.
We call it not a lot of brains, but a lot of big mouths.
Nice.
Just to wrap up tonight, I don't know if this is a compliment or an insult from Polar Nights, but she's saying about you two, or he, I hope when I get as old as Jan and Anthony, I look as good. Does that mean I look absolutely horrible, or
Probably.
I just look so much younger than those guys? I'd like to.
No.
I take it as that we're old as dirt. I think they're old as dirt.
All right, yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys.
I really appreciate it.
Always
And I'll see you in LA. Anthony, do you want to say anything?
This is critical information, and I am sure people are going to be listening to the podcast and grabbing these slides. So
yeah. Sorry, Jan, I hit the wrong button. Thank you so much. We'll see you. We'll see you later. All right, be well, man. What a powerhouse week this has been for the information we're getting here on the show.
You know what? I have 2 commitments during Alice. I was like, I'm going to fly out to Alice after my speaking gig, but I was like, I have to go back up to Boston. So I'm sorry, I'm going to miss it this year. It's probably the most important conferences of the year, if not the most important. And so I was, just bring back all the information and make sure I get that slideshow, buddy.
Yeah. I'll do it right. I'll do it right now. Don't you worry about that. And for all of you, I don't want you to worry about anything out there, because if you want, download our audio podcast, get it where, you're already getting Jan's podcast. If you're not subscribed on iTunes, get ours as well. We're also wherever you get your podcast. And in the show notes will be a link to this graph, or obviously you could just reach out to Jan at CoStar yourself. If you want to watch us, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, No Vacancy News on YouTube, and of course at novacancynews.com. I want to thank everyone for being here. I've got to do a thing for hotel business now on 2024 trends. We got a great panel. Go to hotelbusiness.com. Not too late to register. Tomorrow night, we've got the incredible Sarah Dandashi on Friday Night Audit. Come have some drinks with us. Have a couple of laughs at producer Dave's expense. And that's it.
Listen, don't corrupt young minds.
All right, everybody. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you all next week. Be well.